A man is seen hanging on the edge of death, his terrified screams echoing through the cliffs. He calls out to Li Kai, demanding why he is doing this, but Li Kai only grins with cruel delight, telling Chen Yuan that he knows about his beautiful sister. With mocking arrogance, he suggests that if Chen sends his sister to please him in bed, he might consider pulling him up, asking what he thinks of such a bargain. Yuan's eyes widen with fury as he roars back, swearing he will kill him if he dares to lay a finger on his sister. At that moment, stones crumble beneath his body, and Li Kai sneers, warning him to consider his pathetic state before speaking of revenge, for it seems he cannot even touch him in this condition. With a wicked smile, Li Kai stomps hard on Yuan's trembling hands, drawing a piercing scream of agony. One of the men standing nearby, calling him senior brother, coldly reminds Li Kai that Yuan is insignificant to their guild and should simply be killed after their cruel amusement. Another accomplice nods in agreement, saying the same, that there is no sense wasting time on worthless trash like him. With venomous mockery, Li Kai sticks out his tongue and jeers, claiming he will soon enjoy Yuan's sister, before delivering a merciless final strike that sends Yuan plunging down the cliff. Moments later, Chen Yuan's eyes flutter open in darkness, his mind wavering between consciousness and oblivion, trembling in unbearable pain as despair grips him. Above the cliff, his subordinates urge Li Kai to move on, insisting that Yuan cannot possibly survive such a fall. Li Kai smirks darkly, stating that even if the fall did not kill him, the horde of zombies below would surely tear him apart, leaving no chance of survival, and commands his men to seek out Chen Yao. Meanwhile, Yuan clenches his teeth, forcing his mangled body to move, whispering through frustration and torment that he cannot die here, not when his sister is waiting for him. His hands push weakly against the ground, determination burning faintly in his eyes, until suddenly he freezes, his vision blurring as a swarm of ravenous zombies charges toward him, their grotesque figures closing in with terrifying speed. Chen Yuan trembles the moment he realizes this ruined land once belonged to the Scorching Sun sect, which had been wiped out by an infection 50 years ago, leaving its disciples transformed into mindless zombies. His heart pounds as dread floods his thoughts, wondering if this is truly his fate and whether survival is even possible in such a cursed place. Just then, a radiant blue system interface materializes before his stunned eyes, declaring that the aura of zombies has been detected and that the All Things extraction system is now fully activated. Startled, he scans the surroundings in confusion, trying to understand the strange voice echoing in his mind, until the system calmly announces that faint life signs from the host have been registered and that the newbie protection mode is now engaged. Without warning, a shimmering azure glow wraps around his entire body, and the system asks if he wishes to restore his full vitality. His jaw drops in disbelief before he blurts out an urgent yes, and in the next heartbeat, a mysterious golden flame bursts forth from within him, burning away his injuries as if they had never existed. Looking at his own hands in awe, Yuan realizes that every wound has been miraculously healed in an instant. With renewed vigor, he rises to his feet and roars with determination, proclaiming that now he has the strength to face the undead. Summoning his dual blades with clenched teeth and blazing resolve, he slashes both weapons toward the nearest zombie, only to recognize from its aura and ancient garments that it must have been a formidable steward-level martial artist during life. The revelation leaves him gasping in shock, but before he can steady himself, a massive swarm of zombies charges at him, their grotesque figures swarming like a tidal wave. Yuan makes a swift decision, realizing that standing against such overwhelming numbers alone is suicide. For if even one wound infects him, he too will become a monster like them, and so he turns to flee with all the strength he can muster. Chen Yuan scans the ruined compound and quickly notices that the storeroom of the Scorching Sun sect lies not far from the exit, giving him a slim chance to escape swiftly. Concealed behind a cracked pillar, he observes the horde of zombies crowding near the gate, realizing grimly that if he wishes to leave, he must pass directly through them. Studying their movements with tense caution, he concludes that he must lure them away and cut them down one at a time. Yet he knows if he makes too much noise, the entire swarm will rush at him, and his life will end in an instant. With a narrowed focus, he leaps down, deciding that the zombies possess only dull instincts and will easily fall into his trap. Instantly, one of the mindless creatures lunges at him, and with sharp precision he swings his sword, grazing its back. Frustration hardens his face as he senses the creature's unnatural strength, realizing even the lowest disciple turned zombie wields terrifying power that threatens to overwhelm him. Desperate, he calls upon the system, pleading for aid and reminding it that it healed his wounds once before, insisting that if it supports him again, defeating the undead would be effortless. A translucent window flashes before his eyes, and the system calmly explains that the initial restoration was a one-time gift for new hosts, stating that it can only provide guidance, not direct combat assistance. Yuan roars at the system, demanding extraction immediately, but his heart sinks when it clarifies that extraction is only possible after a kill. At that moment, the snarling zombie launches at him, forcing Yuan to brace himself. With eyes blazing, he accepts he has no other path and activates his secret technique, Reverse Blood Fury Strike. Lifting his blade, he channels his energy into a violent burst, sending the zombie soaring through the air before it crashes lifeless to the ground. He staggers, coughing blood, yet relief spreads across his battered face as he realizes the strike succeeded. He reflects quickly that this dangerous technique was discovered when his blood flow reversed during medicinal training under the Fourth Elder, a power that can double his attack but drains his body heavily, allowing him to wield it only briefly. Wiping the blood from his mouth, he orders the system to begin extraction, and suddenly streams of blue energy rise from the corpse. The interface prompts him to choose among three methods: cultivation level, fragmented memories, or deadly poison. His expression stiffens with awe at the possibilities, but with determination, he selects the third, valuing poison as the sharpest tool to strengthen his survival. In the next instant, the eerie blue energy rushes into his body, wrapping him in a strange new aura. After a minute of searing transformation, he lets out a triumphant breath and smiles fiercely, realizing he has finally broken through the chi refining stage and stepped into the very first realm of true cultivation. Chen Yuan recalls the harsh words of his fourth elder, who once told him that he lacked talent and would never step into the cultivation realm for the rest of his life. Yet now, standing with renewed confidence, he knows that thanks to the All Things Extraction system, he has successfully advanced into the very first stage, the Yellow Temple Foundation building stage, a place he was once told he could never reach. A faint smile tugs at his lips as determination burns stronger in his chest. Turning his gaze toward the ruined temple, he realizes it is time to confront the horde of zombies blocking the gate and test the limits of his newfound strength. His footsteps echo steadily across the cracked ground, every stride filled with unyielding resolve, until a zombie suddenly leaps toward him with feral hunger. Without hesitation, Yuan raises his blade, his mind set on clearing out every last creature that dares to stand in his path, determined to slay them all and carve open the way forward. Chen Yuan slashes his twin blades through the zombies one after another, a fierce smile curling on his lips as exhilaration fills him. After stepping into the chi refining stage, he can clearly sense his power multiplying, his strength nearly tenfold compared to before. Without hesitation, he commands the system to extract from the corpses, this time choosing to draw out their cultivation, feeling a fresh surge of energy flow into his body. He pauses briefly, pondering that while his cultivation level has risen, the increase is not yet dramatic. Suddenly, another pack of zombies lunges at him, catching him off guard, but his reflexes sharpen in an instant as he whirls his blades, cutting them down swiftly one by one. Again, he orders the system to extract, this time absorbing all of their cultivation levels at once, grinning with satisfaction as his realm stabilizes in the middle of the first stage, his abilities climbing steadily higher. Lifting his gaze toward the dark sky, Yuan reminds himself that he must return quickly to his sister. Yet before he can head for the exit gate, a faint whisper reaches his ears from behind. Turning sharply, he realizes another zombie approaches, but this one is far more dangerous, a steward-level undead. The moment his massive fist barrels toward him, Yuan braces and blocks with his swords, his arms trembling at the sheer force, yet he manages to send the monster flying upward with a powerful strike. Steadying his stance, he glances at his torn sleeve and scraped arm, relief flashing across his face when he notices he has not been wounded, for one infection would mean certain doom. His relief is short-lived as the steward zombie charges again, its technique shocking him. Yuan's eyes widen in disbelief as he recognizes the move, the scorching sun palm, the sect's most guarded martial art. Never did he expect a mindless corpse to wield such a skill. Gritting his teeth, he counters by striking against the zombie's blazing palm with his blade, and in the next instant, a violent explosion erupts. At that moment, the system's glowing screen reappears, prompting him to select his method of extraction. To his astonishment, a new option is revealed: the ability to extract martial arts techniques. Shock shifts to excitement as Yuan quickly declares his choice. Enveloped in a fiery aura, he channels the skill and swings his sword with ferocious intent, cleaving into the monster and sending it crashing to the ground. He exhales in relief, but seeing the undead struggling back to its feet, he leaps forward without hesitation, driving his blade directly into its skull and ending the battle for good. Standing over the corpse, he presses his boot firmly onto its back, declaring coldly that its brain is destroyed and it cannot possibly rise again. Staggering a few steps backward, breath ragged and chest heaving, he admits to himself that the reverse blood strike can only be used twice at most, for if he dares employ it a third time, his own life will end instantly. At that moment, the system's glowing screen reappears, prompting him to select his method of extraction. To his astonishment, a new option is revealed: the ability to extract martial arts techniques. Shock shifts to excitement as Yuan quickly declares his choice, reasoning that obtaining the scorching sun palm, the sect's forbidden technique, would be a rare opportunity beyond measure. The system then lists available arts: scorching palm, basic breathing method, and basic cultivation technique. With unwavering resolve, he selects the first option. Immediately, golden yellow energy streams from the zombie's body, merging seamlessly into his own. Yuan gazes at his palms in awe as flames flicker into existence, a victorious smile spreading across his face as the system confirms the integration of the scorching sun palm into his cultivation path. Overwhelmed with joy, he leaps high into the air, shouting in exhilaration that he can now perform it, at least crudely. Laughing, he even raises a thumbs up at the system, though it responds in silence as though puzzled by the gesture. Suddenly, a chilling voice cuts through the air, demanding why he killed her son. Yuan spins around in shock, his heart freezing as a dreadful presence emerges, a woman zombie cloaked in a sinister crimson aura, her eyes glowing with violent red energy, glaring at him with murderous intent that threatens to end his life in the very next heartbeat. Chen Yuan braces himself, his body trembling as he senses the crushing weight of the dreadful aura before him. Gritting his teeth, he wonders in alarm what level this terrifying zombie could possibly be, for he hadn't even detected her presence until now. Judging by her majestic yet tattered robes, she must once have been none other than the master of the Scorching Sun sect, and the thought chills him as he considers that the zombie he slew earlier might truly have been her son. The suspicion becomes certainty when he realizes that she wields the secret techniques of the sect, proving her high rank in life. With eyes blazing red, she bellows again in fury, demanding why he killed her child, her voice cutting like a blade into his ears. Yuan staggers at the sound, shaken to his core, disbelief gnawing at him as he questions how a zombie can even speak. Suddenly, she manifests a crimson orb from her palm and hurls it toward him, screaming for his death while accusing him of trespassing in her sacred sect. The explosive force smashes into him, sending him crashing deep into the ground, his bones rattling as he cries out in pain, realizing her strength is beyond anything he has ever faced. Stumbling to his feet, he forces his legs to move, knowing he must escape immediately, but her voice thunders behind him, commanding him to return her son. Panic surges as a massive red hand surges through the air toward him, and he cannot comprehend its nature. At the last instant, Yuan spins and unleashes a desperate kick, blasting the monstrous hand upward. The woman's burning eyes widen in shock as she recognizes the familiar technique, astonished that he too commands the scorching sun palm. Seizing the moment, Yuan leaps high into the sky, his thoughts racing. If not for this technique, he would already be dead. Soaring higher, he vows he must return to his sect at once. Memories race through his mind of how, a century ago, the zombie plague devastated countless cultivators and plunged the world into an endless apocalypse. These creatures usually slaughter indiscriminately without thought, but now, seeing them speak and strategize proves they are evolving intelligence, a revelation far too dangerous to ignore. Bounding from wall to wall, Yuan pushes himself onward, determined, while behind him, the crimson-clad zombie clenches her fists in rage, her blood-colored gaze fixed on him, as she snarls that he will never escape. She vows that the immortal Regent sect will soon be destroyed, and that the zombie race will rise to dominate all. Elsewhere, Li Kai lounges arrogantly, his men gathered around, sneering in delight as they gaze at the unconscious Chen Yao. One of his subordinates laughs, declaring that Chen Yuan must surely be dead by now, and with him gone, nothing remains to stop their senior brother from taking what he wants. Li steps closer, his fingers brushing across Yao's delicate face, a cruel smirk twisting his mouth as he remarks that she has lost consciousness, but it matters little, because to him, this will simply be a new kind of pleasure. Chen Yuan suddenly appears, shouting furiously at the thugs to take their filthy hands off his sister and step away from her at once. The group freezes in shock, their faces pale with disbelief, until one of them yells in confusion, demanding how it is possible that he is still alive. Yuan glares coldly and retorts that a brute like Li Kai deserves only hell, sneering as he asks why he should have died. A man in a purple robe narrows his eyes and argues that with Yuan's pitiful cultivation, falling into the scorching sun sect overrun with zombies should have ended him. Another thug clenches his jaw in frustration, agreeing that even if he somehow survived the fall, the horde should have devoured him already. Their leader silences them with a sharp shout, berating them for panicking and laughing arrogantly, declaring that even if Yuan did not die, what could he possibly do now? With a wicked grin, he orders Yuan to hand over his sister willingly, promising a painless death in return, mocking him by asking his thoughts on the offer. Yuan raises his sword, his eyes burning with resolve, and declares that Li Kai will die today by his hand. One of the thugs rushes forward, telling his senior brother to step back and let him handle it, charging straight at Yuan while screaming for his death. Yet before he can even reach him, Yuan's blade flashes, slicing through his neck, sending him to the ground, shrieking in agony as blood gushes across the floor. Li Kai's jaw drops in fury as he storms toward Yuan, shouting how he dares to kill one of his men. Yuan smirks, coldly remarking that killing him is only reasonable now. At that instant, the system window appears, prompting Yuan to select an extraction method from the fallen disciple: cultivation level, martial arts technique, or item. Yuan frowns in thought, reasoning that since the one he killed was merely Li Kai's underling, his cultivation was mediocre, his martial arts worthless, and his possessions nothing of value, so he chooses to extract cultivation alone. Standing tall, he absorbs the energy while Li Kai snarls at his remaining men to attack, declaring that the unconscious beauty, his sister, would soon be his. The thugs, spurred by determination, rush at Yuan, but before they can even touch him, his sword arcs in a blur, sending them soaring through the air. Their bodies crash down, chests torn open, eyes wide with terror as they struggle to comprehend how his cultivation could be so overwhelming. One gasps in disbelief, suspecting that he has already reached the first stage. Grinding his teeth, Li Kai curses his useless men and declares he will finish Yuan himself. Sitting cross-legged, he releases a noxious, green energy that spreads like poison, sneering that Yuan is trash and arrogant for challenging him. Yuan raises his gleaming sword, its edge flashing with deadly light, and retorts sharply, demanding to know what Li Kai will do even if he dares to defy him, telling him to stop wasting words and come at him, for he will crush him within a single strike. Li Kai charges at him with brutal momentum, declaring that Yuan's words are absurd because neither he nor his sister will be spared today. Yuan plants his swords in the earth and watches as Li Kai dodges, smirking and taunting that Yuan is only an outer disciple, a lowly servant who could never match him. boasting he can kill Yuan anywhere and at any time he wishes. Calmly, Yuan releases both blades into the soil, exhales, and then his eyes flare crimson as dark orange and molten yellow energies erupt from his body like a burning halo. Li Kai's jaw drops in stunned alarm, demanding to know what that power is, while Yuan raises a hand and coldly tells him that since Li Kai claimed he could not kill him before, now he stands no chance. Li Kai, panicked and incredulous, stammers that such a thing is impossible, but before he can react, Yuan's palm slams into him and sears him against the wall with blistering flame. The thug hacks up blood, bewildered and horrified that Yuan masters the scorching sun palm, and Yuan presses his sword to Li Kai's throat, saying this is the end for him. The craven thug, still reeling, protests that Yuan would never dare kill him. After all, he's only an outer disciple while Li Kai is inner, and tries to flee, but Yuan drives the blade into his back, forcing a pained cry as tears spring to his eyes, and he collapses hard to the ground. Yuan stands over him, eyes blazing, and reminds the fallen man that he warned him earlier. Today, he will die. Suddenly, a group of disciples rushes forward, their faces pale with fear as they demand to know if Yuan truly killed their senior brother, while another shouts in outrage, asking how he dared to do such a thing. Yet Yuan remains composed, his tone cold as he warns them that if he were in their place, he would not be standing here spouting nonsense but running desperately for his life. The men falter, their bravado crumbling as they realize his words ring true, and in panic, they turn to flee, but Yuan raises his swords and declares it is already far too late. Terror-stricken, they scream for mercy, begging him to spare them as they dash toward the exit, yet Yuan soars forward like a shadow of death, cutting them down one after another with swift, merciless strikes. When the last of them falls, he hurries back to his sister's side, softly assuring her that everything is safe now. Though her wide, vacant eyes remain unresponsive, her face blank as if carved from stone, his heart aches at her hollow state, and he gently pats her head, whispering with quiet resolve that she need not fear, for he will find a way to heal her no matter what. Turning toward the corpses scattered on the ground, Yuan steels himself, deciding it is time for extraction. After absorbing the cultivation of the others, only Li Kai's body remains. Gazing at the lifeless outer disciple of the Immortal Region sect, he reflects on their battle, realizing he has slain an enemy tied to powerful figures. At that moment, the system's glowing window materializes, presenting three choices: cultivation, martial arts technique, or memory. Yuan hesitates, aware that Li Kai was merely an outer disciple, but his brother is a formidable inner disciple, and Yuan knows his death will eventually be discovered, so he must prepare in advance and learn his enemy's secrets. He chooses to extract memory, but suddenly agony sears through his body as he clutches his head, screaming in pain, while fragments of Li Kai's brutal and vile past flood into him, confirming he was nothing more than a cruel brute who deserved his end. Dropping to the ground, Yuan feels his body ignite from within, reflecting bitterly that yesterday he advanced too quickly, leaving his foundation unstable. Yet after enduring the torment and refining himself through the night, he rises again, a faint smile crossing his lips as he declares that his cultivation has finally stabilized at the first realm, his strength firmly anchored at the middle stage of the Yellow Court Foundation establishment. Yuan walks toward his sister, intending to examine her condition more carefully. Gently, he pulls back the sleeve from her arm, revealing a faint blue mark etched into her skin. He exhales in relief, realizing that, fortunately, the zombie poison has not yet spread throughout her body. His mind drifts to their past, remembering that he and Chen Yao are both orphans, their parents having perished when they were still young, while the plague of zombies swept mercilessly across the cultivation world. With nowhere else to turn, they had no choice but to seek shelter within the Immortal Region sect to survive. Yet even there, tragedy struck when a swarm of zombies attacked, and Yao was bitten on the arm during the chaos. Though they barely managed to escape with their lives, she lost her clarity, her eyes turning dull and her spirit fading until she became little more than a hollow shell. Still, Yuan clings to a fragile hope, for she has not fully transformed into a zombie, meaning he still has a chance to cleanse the poison coursing within her. Determined, He silently vows to find a way to save her, no matter the cost. Suddenly, a sharp voice breaks his thoughts as someone calls his name from outside. Stepping out, he recognizes senior brother Huang approaching from a decorated carriage, his tone stern as he scolds Yuan, demanding to know what he was told and questioning whether he has forgotten that today is the four elders' crucial medicinal trial. Yuan quickly follows, assuring him that he could never forget and that he will head there immediately. With a frown, Huang insists they hurry at once, warning that if they are late again, they risk angering the four elders, something neither of them can afford. Yuan glances at his senior brother, realizing that the fourth elder he speaks of is none other than the master in charge of the herbalism chamber. His chest tightens with the memory of when he first arrived at the Immortal Region sect and was harshly dismissed by this very elder, who declared his aptitude dull, his talent non-existent, and refused to admit him into the sect. In desperation, Yuan had pleaded and begged until the fourth elder grudgingly allowed him into the servitude hall, though only on the condition that he serve as a test subject for his experimental pills. He sighs inwardly, remembering how, as the elder's subject, he has been forced to swallow countless newly crafted concoctions, many riddled with toxins and disastrous side effects that left him suffering each time. Stepping inside the vast chamber, Yuan follows proper etiquette, bowing respectfully after a senior brother announces their arrival. The fourth elder turns with a faint smile, remarking that it has been some time since they last met, and observing with interest that Yuan's aura has grown noticeably stronger, proof that his cultivation has advanced. Yuan forces a polite smile, replying that his minor progress is entirely thanks to the elder's guidance and unending instruction. The elder, clearly pleased with himself, explains that in recent days he has devised a new recipe using precious spirit herbs, and just as he finishes, a nearby device rattles before releasing a loud chime. His eyes light up with excitement as he shouts that the batch is complete, only for his expression to sour a moment later when the apparatus crackles and releases smoke. He snatches 3 pills from within, his face twisting in frustration as he realizes the refinement has failed, their color murky, their aura lifeless, nothing more than wasted scraps. Yuan instinctively covers his nose, gagging at the foul stench seeping from them, but the elder hurls the pills in his direction, ordering him to consume them immediately. Yuan's mouth twists in disbelief as he hesitates, asking if the elder is truly serious. Anger flares in the elder's eyes as he bellows that Yuan's role as a tester includes swallowing even failed products, while his senior brother sneers and scolds him, calling him ungrateful for being picky despite his lowly position. Yuan trembles inwardly, recalling that although he has consumed flawed pills before, none have ever reeked with such a putrid force. He wonders in dread if this particular batch might contain lethal poison capable of killing him outright. Just then, the familiar system window flashes before his eyes, identifying the 3 failed pills and presenting 2 extraction options, pill toxin or pill essence. His eyes widen as he remembers that extracting pill toxin does not strip it completely of danger, but rather isolates and preserves its toxic elements for study and safe use. Pressed by his impatient senior brother, who urges him to hurry and swallow, Yuan quickly chooses to extract the toxin. The system confirms the extraction, storing the pill toxins safely within his system space. Without further delay, he gulps down the pills, bracing himself for agony. But instead, his eyes snap wide as an overwhelming surge of energy explodes within him. Heat spreads like a gentle fire through his body, strengthening his flesh and bones while leaving him feeling both refreshed and invigorated, as though he is being rebuilt from the inside out. The sensation is intoxicating, almost blissful. The fourth elder peers at him curiously, demanding to know how he feels. Yuan's face goes blank for a heartbeat before he suddenly exclaims with unrestrained fervor that the effect is extraordinary and that he craves more, leaving the elder momentarily stunned, his expression flickering with both shock and disbelief. The senior brother stares at Yuan in disbelief, turning to the elder and asking if he has lost his mind for letting someone swallow failed pills. The fourth elder, unfazed, instructs the senior to test Yuan's clarity. With a smirk, the senior raises a few fingers, asking how many Yuan can see, but before he can react further, Yuan suddenly drives a fist straight into his face. The senior staggers back, eyes burning with anger as he roars, demanding how Yuan dares to strike him. Yuan waves his hand calmly, telling him there is no need for pointless tests because his mind is sharper than ever. The elder, observing carefully, nods with interest, remarking that although the pills were technically a failure, they still produced a remarkable effect. Yet the senior brother, rubbing his bruised face, snaps again, asking if Yuan is truly clear-headed, then why did he hit him? Yuan chuckles faintly, shaking his hand as if brushing away dust, and replies that the elder's pills are what matter most, so there's no reason to bother with such nonsense. The fourth elder, pleased, orders Yuan to return for now, explaining that he intends to refine another batch and wants Yuan back in 3 days. Yuan nods respectfully, saying he understands, and the elder gazes at him with growing favor before suddenly coughing up blood. Alarmed, the senior brother rushes to support him, asking if he is all right. The elder waves him off, muttering that it is nothing but an old ailment, though inside his heart is unsettled, wondering where the refinement had gone wrong and why a failed pill could produce such unusual results. Meanwhile, Yuan steps outside into the courtyard, quietly marveling at how extraordinary the elder's concoction truly was. His body feels sturdier, faster, more alive than ever. Turning toward a nearby tree, he clenches his fist and with a single strike, splits the trunk cleanly in half. A satisfied smile spreads across his face as he thinks that at last he has gained some ability to defend himself within the treacherous immortal region. Just then, a familiar figure approaches with a crooked grin. Yuan narrows his eyes before breaking into a smile, recognizing him as Huang Tang, the only friend he can truly rely on in the sect. Though Huang is notorious for shady dealings, often venturing into dangerous ruins and zombie-infested territories to plunder tombs and hunt treasures, Yuan still considers him a brother. Tang lets out a long sigh and explains that it's been a rough journey. He recently stumbled upon a hidden sect buried deep in the mountains, but as expected, it too was overrun by zombies, and he nearly lost his life trying to escape. Yuan smirks, patting his shoulder firmly, and warns him to abandon these reckless pursuits, reminding him that if he gets buried one day in some cursed ruin, no one will even know where to dig him up. Tang exhales deeply, telling Yuan that it is not as though he has a real choice in the matter. He admits that before his previous master passed away, he was forced to swear an oath to open 108 ancient tombs before retiring from this dangerous path, and now he feels as though he has been deceived into a lifelong burden. Setting aside his grievances, Tang changes the subject and asks Yuan about his sister's condition. Yuan shakes his head and replies that she remains the same, neither improving nor deteriorating. Tang reassures him not to lose hope, insisting that there must be a cure somewhere, and perhaps one day he might uncover a rare treasure within one of those ancient tombs that could save her. Yuan exhales slowly, confessing that he prays for that outcome, though the fourth elder once told him that only the sect master may possess the means to purge the poison, so he must seek a way to meet the master directly. Tang sighs again, remarking that such a meeting is nearly impossible since the sect master always remains out of reach. But Yuan shakes his head firmly, declaring that where there is determination, there must be a way. After a pause, Tang smirks faintly and tells him that if he truly wants to meet Ye-yun, he knows of a method. Yuan raises a brow, asking if he means their senior sister from the outer sect, and Tang nods, explaining that she is not only the strongest among the outer disciples, but also preparing for an expedition where she requires helpers. He reveals that he came specifically to invite Yuan to join. Yuan frowns skeptically, pointing at himself and asking if she would ever bother bringing along lowly outer sect servants. Tang chuckles, shaking his head, and explains that while she does not need them for combat, there are always menial, exhausting tasks that require extra hands, and that is where they will be useful. Still doubtful, Yuan asks how they could possibly gain from such an arrangement. Tang leans closer, whispering with a sly grin that the destination of this expedition is the spiritual field in the back mountain of the Scorching Sun sect. Since it has been abandoned for decades, it likely overflows with rare medicinal herbs. and if they can collect some, their rewards will surpass anything the Servitude Hall could provide in an entire year. Yuan stiffens in surprise, questioning nervously whether it would be too dangerous, since zombies capable of speech are terrifying, and that remote spiritual field is far removed from sect protection. Tang nods gravely, admitting that danger will always linger, yet reassures him that with their senior sister leading them, their safety is far more assured. Yuan finally agrees, saying that in that case, they should set out tomorrow. The following day, several disciples gather at a secluded mountain peak, waiting for their leader. Yuan glances at the sky, remarking that the time of their meeting has already come, and yet their senior sister still has not arrived. Frowning, he mutters that something unexpected must have delayed her. A stranger suddenly appears, glaring at them both and asking sharply why there are outer sect disciples here, scoffing that bringing such low-ranking followers is absurd. He introduces himself as Zhou Chenglong and demands they leave, calling them a burden. Tang steps forward with an easy smile and explains they were only here to handle menial chores. But a murmuring voice behind leans into the senior brother's ear, urging him to allow the two to come along because they might prove useful in a pinch. Zhou chuckles dismissively. Then the senior sister arrives, her graceful presence silencing everyone. Her beauty and poise stun the gathered disciples. She asks if they are prepared, and a disciple answers that they are ready. She gives the order to depart. Tang tells Yuan they must be wary of Zhao's temper and move promptly. 30 minutes pass before Zhou approaches the senior sister and reports that the spiritual field inside the Scorching Sun sect's courtyard should be scouted. She agrees and instructs Zhao to send someone ahead. He turns and points at the two outer disciples, ordering them to enter and reconnoiter. Tang protests loudly, accusing Zhou of sending them to a certain death, but Zhao bellows that they dare not refuse and asks what use they serve if not for tasks like this. Tang retorts that an outer lowly disciple like him would never volunteer for danger, so what purpose does he serve, provoking Zhou's fury. Zhou flares up, fingers stabbing the air as he threatens the insolent youth, but the senior sister cuts him off, commanding calm, yet he insists the two are disobedient and deserve discipline. Instead, she curtly points at him and repeats the order to scout ahead. Zhou sputters in disbelief then, stung and annoyed, forces a grin and promises to go at once, warning Tang that he will settle the score when they return, though Tang replies bluntly that Zhou probably won't come back alive. Yuan leans closer and whispers softly into Tang's ear, remarking that he feels as though Sister Ye Yun might deliberately be shielding them. Yet Tang raises a brow and asks if he truly thinks so, reminding him that their senior sister has always been fair and principled, her conduct reflecting nothing more than her natural temperament. A moment later, Zhou strides hesitantly toward the heavy gate, still puzzling why Ye Yun would send him into such a perilous place. His mind scrambles with frantic thoughts, realizing that he absolutely cannot risk stepping inside because if he opens the door and confronts a formidable zombie, what could he possibly do? His body trembles with dread as he mutters nervously that their lives are dangling by a thread, while the others glance at him with confusion, wondering why he lingers outside instead of going in. One disciple whispers that perhaps Zhou is simply being cautious and probing the situation first. But suddenly Zhou steadies himself, channels his spiritual energy, and with a flash of steel cleaves the door open. Everyone gasps in alarm at the reckless act, and the bald cultivator panics, shouting that smashing the gate with such force will surely draw a swarm. Their fears are confirmed as a cluster of zombies, alerted by the noise, stagger toward the entrance. Zhou's face drains of color, horror filling his eyes as the undead lunge at him, and he immediately turns, shrieking for help while stumbling backward in the opposite direction. The others curse in dismay, pointing out that their senior brother has only managed to attract even more zombies, worsening the danger with his foolishness. Even Ye Yun's usually composed demeanor falters into visible frustration as she calls the situation disastrous. In one graceful motion, she draws her shining sword, commanding the group that it is now time to stand and fight. Tang frantically tugs at Yuan's sleeve, urging him to come along, but Yuan hesitates, his gaze fixed on the chaos. At that moment, a snarling zombie lunges toward Yeyun, but with a swift, fluid swing, she cleaves its head cleanly from its shoulders, her movements sharp yet elegant. Yuan finally follows Tang only to realize, stunned, that his friend has dragged him to a hidden corner instead of into battle. And when Yuan questions it, Tang simply sighs with a sly smile, asking him what else he had honestly been expecting. Tang questions anxiously if Yuan is truly suggesting that they rush out and clash with the zombies head-on, but Yuan calmly replies that he believes he would manage, since he has hidden ways to shield himself, though with Tang's current cultivation level, he would almost certainly be slaughtered. From behind, Zhao approaches with a dark scowl, grinding his teeth in resentment, thinking how close he had come to disaster, yet proud of his quick wit that kept him alive. Both Yuan and Tang glance at him, further stoking his fury, and he suddenly jabs his finger at them, calling them cowards and accusing them of hiding while others bled on the battlefield. Tang erupts with anger, shouting back that Zhou is despicable and demanding how he dares scold them when he himself is doing no better. Zhao bellows arrogantly that he is only here to supervise them, but Tang snarls for him to get lost if he cannot keep his tongue still. Zhao, burning with rage, clenches his fist and lunges, threatening to smash him for the insult, but before the strike lands, his eyes catch a zombie creeping toward them. He sneers, calling it trouble, but then pulls out a sinister bottle, declaring with a twisted smile that it is a perfect opportunity. With a malicious laugh, he hurls it at them, shouting for them to die. Both Yuan and Tang pale in panic, but before the vessel can reach them, Yuan leaps forward and smashes it with a thunderous punch, shattering it midair. Acrid fumes burst out, choking him instantly, and Tang's face drains as he gasps that Yuan has made a grave mistake. It is corpse poison. Zhou sneers with cruel delight, proclaiming that zombies are irresistibly lured by corpse toxins, and now the creatures will tear them apart limb from limb, shouting at them further never to underestimate him again. Tang grits his teeth in sheer frustration, roaring that even if he turns into one of the undead, he will not let Zhou go unpunished, but Zhou mocks him coldly, asking what he can possibly do when they both stand at death's door. Suddenly, the zombie lunges forward, and Tang grabs Yuan's hand, urging him to flee, but the beast is already almost upon them. Tang's eyes widen with despair, realizing this is truly disastrous, for they cannot shake this relentless monster. Yet Yuan suddenly halts, his gaze sharp as steel, and when Tang, nearly in tears, cries out in fear, asking why he has stopped, begging that he does not want to die, Yuan calmly fixes his eyes on the advancing zombie and asks instead if there is any possibility they could defeat it here and now. Tang studies Yuan's face intently, startling him as Yuan demands to know why he is staring, only for his friend to smile faintly and remark that since Yuan already suspects the truth, there is no need to pretend any longer, and he will unveil it now. Suddenly, Yuan tilts his head in confusion, wondering what Tang means, when a sharp surge of energy brushes against his cheek, and Tang steps forward, his body radiating a dazzling yellow aura as he declares that he indeed has the strength to slay zombies. Just as one of the undead lunges at them, Tang drives his fist forward with overwhelming force, sending the creature soaring into the air. Yuan stares in disbelief, realizing that this friend has been concealing his true might all along. Tang then calmly reveals that he actually reached the middle stage of the first realm 6 months earlier, but chose not to disclose it, as he prefers living in obscurity. Yuan reflects that though he had intended to reveal his own hidden power, he has instead unintentionally exposed Tang's. Tang reassures him with firm conviction, urging him to continue striving, believing that one day Yuan will catch up and stand shoulder to shoulder with him in strength. Abruptly, Tang turns and warns that they must leave at once, for the corpse poison clinging to them will draw more horrors. Covering his nose, he notes that the stench lingers stubbornly and insists they hurry to find Senior Sister Ye before worse comes. Yuan nods silently, though within his heart he commands the system to siphon the zombie's cultivation, and instantly a torrent of energy floods his body, pushing his cultivation to the peak of the first realm. Meanwhile, Yi stands tall amid the carnage, her sword dripping with the blood of fallen zombies. when one of her men reports breathlessly that all enemies have been slain and their squad has suffered no losses. She turns sharply, asking about the two new disciples, only to hear the man state bluntly that they are already dead. Her expression tightens in shock as she demands to know how, and Zhao coldly interjects that he saw them chased by the undead, and with their pitiful cultivation, they are surely gone. Without hesitation, Yi's hand flashes across his cheek, the crack resounding as Zhou reels in disbelief, staring at her in stunned confusion while demanding to know why she struck him. Her eyes blaze with fury as she glares at him, demanding to know why he dares to look pleased at their supposed deaths. Zhou stammers, flustered, insisting that he only thought without them slowing the group down, their progress would be smoother, but Yi's fiery wrath makes it clear his callousness has betrayed him. Suddenly, both boys emerge from the shadows, and Tang speaks coldly, demanding who dared to declare them dead. One man whirls around in alarm, questioning who dares to eavesdrop on them, while Zhou's eyes widen in disbelief as he shouts in utter shock, demanding to know how they are still alive. Grinding his teeth in frustration, Tang snaps back, asking why he is so astonished. Ye, sensing an unusual disturbance in the air, narrows her gaze at them and demands to know what the strange scent clinging to their bodies is, her voice sharp as she questions if it could possibly be corpse poison. Tang, panicking, immediately raises his hand and points directly at Zhou, pushing all the blame onto him and accusing him of nearly getting them killed. Zhou stumbles back, waving his hands frantically and denying the accusation, pleading with Ye for the chance to explain, but before he can utter more than a few words, her palm smashes across his face once again, sending him sprawling. Her tone turns glacial as she informs him that she will grant him one chance to explain himself, but if even a single lie slips from his mouth, she will end his life instantly. Trembling on the ground, his tongue falters as he mutters that he has nothing to say. At that moment, Tang interjects smoothly, stating that as far as he knows, there is only one method to erase the stench of corpse poison, and that is by purging it with fresh human blood. Yi tilts her head, eyes narrowing in suspicion as she asks him what exactly he means. Tang smirks wickedly and explains that in this case, they should kill Zhou to cleanse the taint. Zhou erupts in panic, shouting desperately that she must not do it, claiming that such a mistake does not deserve execution, and then he turns toward Tang, begging for mercy and promising never to repeat his errors again. Tang mocks him mercilessly, asking if he feels fear now, but declaring that it is useless, for there is no escape. Without hesitation, Ye raises her sword, and in a single swift motion, slices him apart, his agonized screams drowned in a spray of blood as his body collapses lifelessly. Turning calmly, she instructs her men to remove the lingering corpse poison scent, and as they obey, the odor dissipates into nothingness. Yi nods once, commanding them to return to the spiritual herb garden, and strides away with cold authority. Behind her, Zhou, bloodied and disgraced, glares at Tang and Yuan, shouting furiously, demanding how they dare draw his blood and humiliate him in front of everyone, vowing they will pay dearly. Tang merely raises his hands mockingly, pointing at his left and right before slowly raising his middle finger with a smirk. Zhou's eyes flare wide with rage, his face burning with fury, but he forces himself to swallow his anger, turning his head aside to mask his humiliation. Meanwhile, Yuan, calm amidst the chaos, notices another lurking zombie, and with quiet resolve, he orders the system once more to extract its cultivation. Yuan inhales the swirling energy, feeling the surge of strength coursing through his veins, and realizes with amazement that the sensation of gaining power without any true effort is intoxicating and almost addictive. Standing calmly before the ancient door, Ye reminds everyone that beyond lies the spiritual field, her tone carrying both warning and authority as she instructs her followers to remain cautious. Despite her words, unease spreads among the disciples, their nerves fraying, until Ye pushes the heavy door open and steps inside. Instantly, an intoxicating medicinal fragrance fills the air, and one of the men gasps in disbelief, marveling at the overwhelming spiritual aroma. Their shock deepens as they witness countless rare herbs thriving before their eyes, glowing faintly with power. One disciple, unable to contain his excitement, rushes recklessly toward a radiant flower, exclaiming that they have stumbled upon a treasure trove, but before his hand can touch it, a sinister aura erupts. He jerks back instantly, trembling as he scans the field, stammering in horror, unable to comprehend how such corruption could exist. Yi's eyes narrow as she surveys the field with sharp focus, explaining that the spiritual herbs have been corrupted by zombies. Though the spiritual essence remains, they can no longer be consumed safely by ordinary cultivators. A green-haired disciple, his voice tinged with bitterness, questions whether the corruption truly renders everything useless, asking if this means their entire journey was for nothing. Yi responds steadily, noting that this is merely the outer spiritual field, and recalling that the Scorching Sun sect maintains another inner garden, one safeguarded by powerful formations, where untouched herbs may still be preserved. Meanwhile, Yuan studies the wilted yet radiant plants, pondering whether even these tainted herbs could still be of value. Quietly, he summons his mysterious system, asking if the ruined plants before him can be extracted. The system's cold mechanical voice answers, presenting two options: extract the medicinal energy and condense it into pills, or draw out the corpse poison hidden within. Yuan's eyes widened in shock at the discovery, astonished that these withered herbs still hold potential, and without hesitation, he chose the first option, ordering the extraction of their medicinal essence. Instantly, a surge of aura floods into him, and the system congratulates him for obtaining 10 basic healing pills, 5 radiant beauty pills, and 3 explosive energy pills. As the process completes, the entire garden quakes, and in a blinding moment, every herb withers to ash, disintegrating into nothingness. The disciples stagger back in disbelief, their voices filled with panic as they shout and question what just happened, horrified by the sight of the once lush spiritual field reduced to barren dust before their eyes. Yuan is utterly shaken, realizing with dread that the medicinal essence of the spiritual herbs has been completely drained by him alone, and he never expected such a devastating outcome, leaving him utterly bewildered. Even senior sister Ye is stunned, her eyes narrowing in disbelief as she demands to know what has happened and why the immense spiritual power within the herbs has suddenly vanished into thin air. Abruptly, one of the disciples reports that they have discovered a formation up ahead, and at once she commands them to guide her there. A moment later, one of her men leads her to a grand palace, pointing toward it and explaining that based on the intricate layout of the entire sect, this formation is most likely the entrance to the true inner spiritual field. Yi frowns at his conjecture, instructing him sharply to abandon speculation and step inside to verify the truth with their own eyes. Entering the shadowed chamber, she orders her followers to remain vigilant and keep alert for zombies. Suddenly, without warning, a zombie leaps down from the roof, launching itself toward her. She swiftly raises her sword and strikes, but the creature astonishingly evades her slash, landing on the ground with feral speed, forcing her into shock as she realizes that this is no ordinary foe, but a high-level zombie. She quickly warns her disciples that those unable to fight must fall back. But in the chaos, one unlucky youth is bitten, screaming in agony and crying desperately that he does not want to die. Yi shouts above the noise, rallying the disciples, commanding all those in the first stage of cultivation to fight with everything they have to eliminate the threat alongside her. At her command, every disciple rushes forward, blades flashing in unison, and after a brutal clash, they succeed in overwhelming and slaying the monstrous zombie. A moment of relief washes through the group as one man smiles and declares that the danger is over. Yet it is swiftly broken when another disciple shouts that Zhang San is in grave trouble. Panic rises as it is revealed that he has been bitten, and his body trembles violently, veins already darkening as the corpse's poison spreads. Zhang cries out in terror, begging through tears that he does not want to die, while Ye's face hardens with sorrow as she tells him there is no choice, for the poison has no cure. His body convulses, skin turning blue and eyes glowing a haunting green, and before he loses all control, he lunges at her in desperation. In one swift, merciless strike, Ye slices him cleanly in two, ending his suffering instantly. She then turns coldly to the rest of her disciples, her voice echoing like steel, commanding them to engrave her words deep into their hearts. That corpse poison is incurable, and if any among them are ever infected, execution is necessary without hesitation, even if the one infected is herself. She warns them with unwavering conviction that they must never falter nor allow sentiment to cloud their duty, no matter how heavy the cost. On the other hand, Yuan clenches his fist tightly, his determination burning as he thinks there is no way corpse poison can truly be incurable, and he swears inwardly that he will find a method to save Chen Yao. Suddenly, an eerie and towering zombie appears, sending a wave of dread through all the disciples as they struggle to identify what manner of creature stands before them. The monster steps closer, its presence suffocating, while confusion spreads among the group, one disciple whispering in disbelief about its towering height. Yet another, braver than the rest, sneers defiantly, proclaiming that no matter how tall it is, there cannot possibly be such powerful zombies wandering the outskirts of the Scorching Sun sect. He charges recklessly, sword raised, boasting that he will deal with it himself, but before he can strike, Yi urgently shouts for him to retreat. Her warning comes too late. In the blink of an eye, the zombie smashes him into the ground with a single devastating punch, his body embedded deep within the cracked floor. The crowd gasps in terror, their fear multiplying as one disciple stammers that this abomination is no ordinary fiend, but the Mountain Guardian, one of the 4 legendary guardians of the Scorching Sun sect. Yi's expression hardens as she mutters that their situation has turned dire. Another disciple, trembling in confusion, demands an explanation, only to be told that the guardian was once ranked among the top 100 experts of the sect, which leaves everyone reeling at the cruel misfortune of encountering such a figure here on the outskirts. Panic rises as some suggest retreat, warning that guardian-level zombies often retain their formidable cultivation even in death. Yet Ye steadies them, her voice sharp and resolute, reminding them that while such creatures are powerful, their intelligence is diminished, and with unity, they may still be defeated. As the monstrous zombie charges with thunderous steps, Yuan unsheathes his sword, declaring that it seems they are in for a fierce battle. Before he can act, Tang pinches his arm sharply, hissing at him to stop his madness. Tang chuckles nervously, questioning whether Yuan has lost his senses, and urges him instead to let the other disciples delay the beast. With a sly grin, he reveals a hidden teleportation array beneath them, explaining that they can escape and reach the spiritual field directly. Yuan's eyes widen in surprise before he breaks into a smile, praising Tang as a genius, and the two quickly rush into the array. Zhao, spotting them from behind, sneers with suspicion, muttering that the two are cunning and clearly plotting something. Without hesitation, he dashes after them, shouting that they dare not hide treasures from him, and leaps into the array as well. In a flash of light, Yuan and Tang find themselves transported into a strange subterranean cavern, its air heavy with the scent of ancient earth. Tang frowns in confusion, admitting that the teleportation array must have diverted them, yet his eyes soon gleam with excitement as his years of tomb raiding experience tell him that this underground cave undoubtedly holds treasures beyond imagination. Yuan suddenly notices something unusual growing along a nearby cliff and points urgently, his voice tinged with astonishment, urging Tang to take a closer look at the strange cluster of luminous flowers blooming there. Tang's eyes glimmer with excitement as he nods eagerly, declaring that they have indeed stumbled upon treasures, for those 3 spiritual herbs are all earth grade, and now they belong entirely to them. Yuan, still uncertain, hesitantly asks if taking them might upset their senior sister, but Tang reassures him firmly, explaining that Ye Yun's main purpose here is to find fire spirit grass, and since there is one growing among them, they will simply offer that to her later while keeping the remaining herbs for themselves. Just as Yuan begins to relax, Zhou suddenly emerges from behind, his voice echoing angrily as he demands to know what they are doing. Grinding his teeth in fury, he accuses them of being nothing but thieves, daring to steal spiritual treasures under his watch. Tang, equally fired up, shouts back, asking Zhou what exactly he intends, only for Zhao to sneer with a dark smirk, pointing out that there is no one else around, making it the perfect opportunity to eliminate them. Tang counters sharply, questioning if Joe is not afraid their senior sister will eventually discover his treachery. But Joe laughs coldly, insisting that she will never know. Clenching his jaw in frustration, Tang launches forward with his sword, vowing to teach Joe a hard lesson, and Joe, equally enraged, charges to meet him, shouting that Tang has asked for his own doom and daring to strike him first. Their blades clash with a thunderous impact, sparks scattering, and in an instant, Joe is overwhelmed, forced backward by Tang's fierce power, his eyes wide as he grits his teeth and demands to know how a so-called rookie disciple could possibly be that strong. Tang smirks confidently, retorting with mockery that this strength is indeed a surprise, before glancing toward Yuan and urging him to hurry and fetch their senior sister. Zhou, however, snarls furiously, declaring that none of them will escape as he lunges again, only to be narrowly countered. Still dodging frantically, Zhou growls that no matter how well Tang conceals his true ability, he remains among the top 10 outer disciples, so Tang cannot possibly be his equal. Yet Tang refuses to relent, his sword slicing forward with determination, once again urging Yuan to stop hesitating and seek out Yeyun quickly, for he cannot hold Zhou back forever. Yuan shakes his head with resolve, telling Tang there is no longer any need to trouble their senior sister, but in the next breath, Tang is thrown violently backward, crashing against the stone ground. Zhao smirks cruelly at the sight, mocking Tang for overestimating himself and ridiculing him for his foolish arrogance, his voice dripping with scornful delight. Zhou continues to mock Tang with a cruel sneer, then shifts his gaze toward Yuan's calm and steady expression, remarking that it almost seems as though Yuan has been aware of the situation all along. Narrowing his eyes, he points his sword directly at him, declaring coldly that in that case, he will grant Yuan a swift death. Tang clenches his teeth in frustration, shouting desperately for his friend to flee, but Zhou only smirks, telling him it is pointless because there is no way Yuan can escape. Just as Zhou is about to strike, Tang cries out in rage, warning him not to dare, but in the next instant, Zhou is violently knocked backward by Yuan's counter. Staggering to his feet, Zhou stares in shock, demanding to know what kind of monster Yuan really is, while Tang, equally stunned, rises and questions his friend with wide eyes, unable to comprehend what just happened. Even Zhou, regaining his balance, growls in disbelief, asking how Yuan could possibly wield such strength. Yuan, his voice calm yet sharp, simply reminds them that he had promised to give them a surprise. Tang, still in awe, slaps Yuan lightly on the back, laughing in disbelief, saying he truly never expected his closest companion to hide such frightening power. Zhou, however, clenches his fists tightly, veins bulging with fury, shouting that as one of the top 10 outer disciples, he will not allow such humiliation and vows to kill them both. Yuan raises his hand, pointing at Zhou with icy confidence, and challenges him to bring it on. Suddenly, Zhou slams both his palms together, summoning his unyielding golden form, a radiant aura bursting forth as he charges forward with immense momentum. His massive golden palm descends with terrifying force, casting a shadow over Yuan, who is stunned by the sheer pressure of the technique, realizing he has never seen or even heard of such a martial skill. In a blinding instant, the colossal strike slams into him, hurling Yuan backward with overwhelming power that shakes the cave itself. Zhou regains control of himself, glaring at Yuan with a twisted grin, as he asks if Yuan now understands the terrifying strength of the top 10 elites. Slamming his palms together once more, he snarls that this time he intends to end Yuan's life completely. Just as the golden light swells again, Tang calls out anxiously, urging Yuan to join forces with him and take down this madman together. But Yuan only smirks faintly, shaking his head, declaring that there is no need. Flames erupt around his hands as he dashes forward with unstoppable momentum, colliding with Zhou in a deafening explosion that shakes the cavern walls and sends shockwaves spiraling through the air. Zhou is hurled across the stone floor, his body smashing violently into the ground. He struggles to lift his arm, but it trembles uncontrollably before collapsing back down in defeat. Tang stares in utter disbelief at his companion, his voice trembling as he asks whether this is truly the same brother he thought he knew. Yuan smiles lightly, reassuring him that there is nothing to worry about, explaining that he had merely concealed a little of his strength all along. Tang, still stunned, stammers in protest, exclaiming that if this is only a little, then what kind of monster is he really? He accuses Yuan of keeping such power hidden for so long and growls that he deserves a beating for the deception. Yuan only chuckles, teasing him by asking whether he fears his brother will suffer or if he fears his brother might actually enjoy this revelation. Tang points at him in frustration, demanding to know what is truly happening, because even if Yuan had concealed his strength, he should not be this overwhelmingly powerful, practically standing at the threshold of becoming an inner disciple already. Yuan merely walks past him calmly, saying they should stop wasting time and quickly collect the 3 spiritual herbs before more trouble arrives, and that they can discuss everything later outside. Tang nods reluctantly, moving ahead, while Yuan lingers for a brief moment, silently commanding his system to extract Zhou's body. The system presents options: core, memories, cultivation, and a unique choice: yellow-grade low-level gold attribute special constitution. Yuan's eyes widen in shock as he realizes why Zhou could crush swords with one hand and secure a top ranking among outer disciples, because he possessed a rare constitution. Even if it was low level, it was still immensely valuable, so Yuan instantly chose the third option. A surge of power floods his body, his bones and muscles strengthening, his physique brimming with new vitality as he marvels at how significantly his physical strength has increased. Tang, impatient from ahead, calls for him to hurry, and Yuan quickly replies that he is coming. Tang gestures at the cliff, noting that the 3 spiritual herbs are all of the highest grade. He explains that they should present the fire spirit herb to their senior sister as planned, while the remaining gold and water spirit herbs could be divided between them. Turning to Yuan, he asks which one he desires. Yuan, after a brief glance, answers decisively that he will take the gold spirit herb. Both of them carefully pull the spiritual herbs out from their roots, and Tang glances at Yuan, insisting that they should now leave before more danger arrives. Yet Yuan remains still, summoning his system and commanding it to extract the essence from the gold spirit herb. Once the process is complete, the system inquires whether he wishes to absorb the condensed golden essence. Yuan blinks in surprise, asking if this radiant energy truly belongs to the gold spirit herb itself, then quickly confirms that he wishes to absorb it. A brilliant golden aura coils around him like a divine halo, radiating a dazzling luster. Tang, ready to leave, pauses when his eyes widen in astonishment as he sees his companion enveloped in this unusual light. He stares in disbelief, muttering if this is perhaps the awakening of a special constitution. Yuan himself is startled, realizing aloud that after absorbing the golden essence, his gold-type special constitution has been fully perfected, declaring that the gold spirit herb is far more extraordinary than expected. Tang's jaw nearly drops as he exclaims in envy, asking if Yuan has truly managed to awaken a rare special constitution. Yuan nods thoughtfully, then adds that if the gold spirit herb could produce such astonishing power, doesn't that mean the soil that nourished it must also be extraordinary? He crouches down, scooping some of the earth into his palm, remarking that he can clearly feel immense spiritual energy flowing within this soil. Tang, baffled, asks what he is doing now, and Yuan calmly replies that he is only conducting a small test. He then orders the system to extract the soil, and the system presents him with 3 choices: pure spiritual soil, pure spiritual energy, or primordial energy. Yuan furrows his brows in confusion, finding the first 2 understandable, yet puzzled by the third option. Smirking with curiosity, he decides it must be something rare and invaluable, so he boldly chooses the third extraction. In an instant, brilliant blue light bursts from the soil, swirling around him like a storm of divine energy, wrapping his entire body in its mysterious glow. Tang rushes forward in alarm, grabbing his shoulder and demanding to know what he is doing, but suddenly, Yuan's eyes shine like molten gold as an overwhelming force erupts outward, knocking Tang to the ground. Tang stares in shock, shouting that his friend has just broken through. Overwhelmed, he begins to cry, complaining bitterly that he has been struggling so hard just to step into the second stage, yet Yuan has advanced effortlessly in front of him. Tang shakes his head in disbelief, yelling at Yuan, if he even understands how crushing it feels to witness all of this unfold so easily before his eyes. Yuan stares at his hands, realizing with astonishment that he has not merely advanced to the next cultivation stage. Breaking through was only a minor side effect. What truly happened is far greater. He has absorbed the primordial energy, and his entire body is undergoing a profound transformation as that ancient force fortifies his physique from within. He feels as though his very being is wrapped in an invisible armor, a resilient shield of strength that assures him he will continue to grow even stronger as he absorbs more of this mystical essence. Yet his thoughts are abruptly interrupted by Tang, who is still crying in disbelief, shouting at him in frustration and asking if he is dreaming. Yuan only smirks, declaring that he is not trapped in a dream but soaring above reality itself. Tang, desperate and curious, begs him to reveal how he achieved such a miraculous feat, but Yuan teasingly replies that he will only share his secrets if Tang first calls him dad. Tang freezes, utterly bewildered, questioning what nonsense that even means, but despite not fully understanding, he begins hopping in exaggerated excitement and shouts that he will indeed call him daddy. Meanwhile, back within the sect, the situation spirals into chaos as disciples fall one after another beneath the relentless assault of the guardian zombie. Panic spreads through their ranks as they scream that the monster is far too powerful, leaving them no chance to defeat it and no path to escape. Just as one disciple is about to be torn apart, he screams in despair, believing it to be his end. But at the last moment, the zombie's attack is deflected backward by Yeyun's strike. The disciple looks up at his senior sister with desperate hope, and she meets his gaze firmly, commanding him to retreat while she holds the monster at bay. The disciples quickly scatter, warning her to be careful, while the towering zombie charges forward with terrifying speed. Yeyun dodges narrowly, but the impact of the force numbs her arm, sending waves of pain through her body. Injuries spread across her frame as she admits to herself that she has gravely underestimated the might of this guardian zombie, and that today may well be her final battle. As the towering creature leaps down with crushing force to finish her, she raises her arm instinctively to shield her face, but the devastating strike hurls her upward, slamming her into the roof. She crashes down, coughing blood in agony, her body trembling as despair threatens to consume her. Yeyun crashes down hard, her battered body landing beside the glowing teleportation array, blood dripping from her lips as the guardian zombie lumbers forward with murderous intent. She struggles to rise, forcing her trembling arms beneath her, her thoughts racing. She cannot give up now. She must find a way to stand and fight. Suddenly, a flash of light bursts from the array, and Yuan steps out, his gaze locking onto her as he urgently calls her name. Tang appears behind him, equally stunned by her condition, blurting out in alarm, demanding to know what is happening. Yuan quickly rushes to her side, lifting her up and giving her support so she can remain on her feet. Yeyun, however, shakes her head firmly, telling them not to concern themselves with her injuries and to escape while they still can. But Tang roars back with fiery defiance, shouting that he will never abandon his senior sister. How could they call themselves men if they fled and left her behind like cowards? His words barely fade before the zombie bellows and charges directly at him. Yeyun, wide-eyed, urges Tang to counterattack, but it becomes clear he has overestimated himself. He scrambles to dodge as the colossal force bears down, his confidence breaking into fear, and in an instant he is struck aside, coughing blood and crying out that he is no match for such a monster. In desperation, he turns toward Yuan, voice cracking as he calls him dad, begging him to save his life. At the very moment the zombie raises its arm to crush Tang completely, Yuan surges forward, intercepting the blow with steady resolve. Tang cheers with wild relief, while Yeyun stands frozen, disbelief flooding her eyes. How could a mere handyman disciple endure a strike from a guardian-level zombie cultivator? The undead roars with fury, retreating a step before circling back with even greater rage. Yuan seizes Tang by the arm and hurls him toward the doorway, commanding him to retreat immediately. From behind, Yeyun, still shaken yet curious, demands his name, but Tang blurts out proudly before Yuan can answer, declaring that he is Chen Yuan, his dad. Yeyun blinks in confusion, her brows furrowing as she questions what he means by that. Tang, grinning despite his bruises, explains it is more like an honorary title, asking Yuan if that interpretation is correct. Yuan, embarrassed yet amused, can only smile faintly and nod, telling her she may indeed think of it that way. The guardian zombie rampages with furious roars, striking at them one after another, its attacks relentless and terrifying. In desperation, even Ye Yun calls Yuan dad, begging him to hold the creature back while she gathers her strength to deliver a finishing blow. Yuan, startled and embarrassed, insists she could simply call him by his actual name, but before further words can be exchanged, the zombie raises its massive arm to strike them down. Ye Yun urgently commands Yuan to stop it, and without hesitation, he charges forward, leaping with his sword gleaming, declaring firmly that the monster will not get past him. His blade collides with its strike, forcing the beast back momentarily, earning Ye Yun's praise as she tells him he has done well and should now watch carefully. With determination, she draws her weapon, fire energy surging and swirling until flames engulf the entire area. She spins her sword in a blazing arc and releases the inferno, sending it crashing into the zombie. Its body is set ablaze, its screams echoing as the fire consumes its flesh, and Ye Yun shouts that the attack is working. Yet, to her horror, the monster bursts free from the flames moments later, still alive and howling in rage. Shocked, she gasps that it survived even her strongest strike, then orders everyone to retreat immediately before it is too late. Yuan, however, raises his hand and tells them to wait. Tang, sweating profusely, panics and demands to know what danger he senses and where it is coming from. Suddenly, a strange, chilling noise reverberates from above, making their hearts pound. Yuan lifts his gaze and instantly recognizes her, the matriarch of the sect, the terrifying female corpse cultivator he encountered once before. Their eyes meet briefly, but Yuan masks his recognition, feigning ignorance as he calmly asks Ye Yun if the figure above them is also a cultivator. Tang trembles, blurting out that they are finished, insisting that if she takes action, none of them will escape. Even Yuan feels a tremor of shock when, without warning, the matriarch raises her hand, her long finger pointing directly at him as her voice tears through the air, shouting his name. Tang, confused, turns to Yuan, questioning why the woman points toward them. Before he can respond, another zombie bursts from behind, releasing streams of green energy as it roars. Ye Yun glances back, shouting that another one is behind them. Tang turns as the creature moves closer, and they realize with shock that more are approaching. He exclaims that everything is turning worse. The woman orders both men to run, saying she will hold the zombies off. Tang shakes his head, uncertain but firm, saying they didn't leave before and won't now. Yuan stares at him, unable to understand what has changed in his friend, who would usually have escaped by now. Ye Yun channels her energy and dashes forward, her sword striking the zombie with full force. She leaps upward, lands hard, and clenches her jaw in frustration, realizing her spiritual strength is too weak. The zombie attacks again, and she shields herself, shouting in pain as she crashes to the ground before regaining balance. Yuan calls from behind, concerned. She wipes her face, says she is fine, and tells them to focus on taking down one corpse cultivator first. The three stand firm as the zombie releases a surge of dark aura. Yuan jumps high, unleashing his power toward the creature, but it dodges and growls in rage. The others follow, attacking together as the zombie smashes the ground, hurling broken stones at them. Realizing their attacks have no effect, Yuan grabs his robe and says they will need to use the explosive Yuan pills from earlier. He pulls them out, throwing one to each of his companions. Tang catches him, staring at it in confusion, wondering what it is. Ye Yun explains that the pill is an explosive Yuan elixir. It can force their inner cores to erupt, raising their cultivation for a short time. She adds that such a rare item should be impossible for a low-ranked disciple like Yuan to possess. Yuan swallows the pill, saying this is not the moment for questions and that he will explain later. They all take it together. A rush of energy floods their bodies. Tang looks at his hands, amazed, saying he feels as if power is pouring through every part of him. The senior woman lifts her sword, telling them to return to battle. They move quickly, striking the zombie in turns until Yuan smirks, knowing they have taken one down. Another zombie suddenly charges at Yeyun. Her eyes widen as she realizes it is about to strike. She shouts for the others to move into position. All three freeze when they see a weapon in the zombie's hand. The creature throws Yuan to the ground. Tang struggles to stay upright, panicking as he realizes the zombies are now using weapons. Yeyun steadies herself, saying they are evolving and growing stronger with each fight. She glances at the sky, the zombie standing between them, and asks Tang if he is all right. His breath quickens as he admits that he cannot hold on much longer. She lowers her sword, realizing the corpse cultivator is far stronger than they expected, but tells him to endure a bit longer because they have almost worn it down. Her eyes then widen as her body collapses to her knees, a surge of wild energy dragging her under. Yuan shouts her name in worry, but she stands up, saying she is fine and can still fight. He looks at her and points out that she is badly wounded, warning that forcing herself will only make it worse. Tang panics, realizing that if she is done for, they will not last much longer, and this could be their end. Suddenly, Yuan pulls out more pills from his pocket, throwing them toward his companions and telling them to take them. He recognizes these as the healing pills he acquired earlier, deciding this is the perfect time to use them. Tang catches one and asks what kind of pill it is this time. Yeyun examines it and says they are healing pills of very high grade, shocking her. Tang walks to Yuan, asking where he got something so rare, but Yuan tells him to just eat without counting the seeds. As soon as they swallow the pills, orange energy surges through their bodies, their eyes widening in surprise. Yuan smirks and asks how they feel. Tang looks at his hands, saying the pills are incredibly effective and he is mostly healed. Yeyun checks her body and says one wound still remains. Yuan throws more pills toward them, saying it is fine because he has plenty. Tang catches another, eyes gleaming, and gives him a thumbs up before swallowing it again. Lily feels the energy rush through her body and says she is fully recovered, urging them to continue the fight. With her leading, they charge toward the zombie as she shouts for them to kill it, striking it with their combined strength and throwing it into the air. Tang exhales in relief, thinking the battle is finally over, but Yuan shakes his head, saying the danger is not gone because the female corpse cultivator above is still watching them. Suddenly, the lady zombie's aura darkens, her energy overwhelming as she roars. Tang trembles, asking what she is roaring about, fear spreading through him. In an instant, a massive group of zombies appears in the sky, leaping toward them and sending a wave of panic through him. Tang panics as he realizes an overwhelming number of corpse cultivators have appeared, even shocking Yuan and the senior sister. Yuan observes the scene and concludes that the creatures have been summoned by the female corpse cultivator. Yeyun studies the horde and remarks that the corpses must have evolved, explaining that higher-ranked ones can now command the lower ranks, which spells trouble for them. Tang, grasping the danger, shouts that they should stop talking and run, certain that staying any longer will mean death. They all dash toward the exit while Yuan activates his system, commanding it to extract the energy from the two protector corpse cultivators. The system presents several extraction options, and Yuan, intrigued, realizes the feature has become far more advanced. He can now extract cultivation insights. He notes that his cultivation has risen too rapidly, leaving his foundation unstable, and decides that these insights will help solidify it. Selecting the third option, he focuses as green light bursts from the corpses below, their energy streaming toward him. The power floods his body, and flashes of profound understanding fill his mind. His cultivation flaws dissolve instantly, replaced by insights that feel like decades of training condensed into moments. Because the system filters and optimizes everything, none of the energy harms his consciousness. Tang, noticing him standing still, yells for him to move, urging him to hurry before it is too late. Snapping out of his trance, Yuan responds and rushes after them. Suddenly, the female corpse cultivator descends from her perch, her voice echoing as she calls out to them. Yeyun glances back, eyes wide with fear, as he lets out a startled cry. Yeyun panics, insisting that she just heard the female corpse speak. The undead cultivator lets out a furious roar, declaring that they will all die. Tang freezes in terror, crying out for help, unable to comprehend how a corpse could talk. The senior sister snaps at them to stop standing around and run, urging everyone to leave before it's too late. After sprinting through the dark passage for a while, they finally escape the area. Tang bends over, gasping for air, muttering that the ordeal was horrifying and that he still can't believe what just happened. Ye Yun, catching her breath, says they must report this immediately to the sect. If corpse cultivators can speak, the continent could soon descend into chaos. Tang glances at her and points out that her face looks pale and wounded. Reaching up, Ye Yun touches the injury and frowns, explaining that it came from the corpse cultivator and carries poison, meaning it won't heal easily. Yuan steps forward and tosses her a pill, telling her to take it. Catching it, she stares in surprise, asking if it's a Yuan nourishing pill. Yuan smirks and nods. Tang stares at him, stunned, muttering that Yuan must be some kind of walking treasure to carry something so rare. The senior sister thanks him warmly, calling him her junior brother and promising she owes him a favor. After swallowing the pill, she feels warmth spread through her body as the pain fades and the wound lightens, though not completely healed. Tang notices this and comments on it, but before she can respond, Yuan tosses her another pill, telling her not to worry. She takes it without hesitation, and within moments, the wound vanishes completely, leaving her skin smooth and unblemished, even more radiant than before. Smiling, she thanks him again and says it's time for them to return. After returning to the Raging Sun sect, the senior sister turns to the two and tells them they should part ways here, as she must urgently report the developments regarding the corpse cultivators to her master. She explains that this discovery could shake the entire cultivation world. Her gaze shifts to Yuan, and she remarks that with his current cultivation level, he shouldn't still be a mere menial servant. Smiling, she adds that she can speak to her master on his behalf and requests that he be promoted to an outer sect disciple, giving him the chance to participate in this year's inner sect grand competition. She tells him that if he manages to leap the Dragon Gate, his future will be limitless. Yuan returns her smile, saying that in that case, he can only express his gratitude. Tang, standing beside him, points at his own face and asks what she thinks about him. She looks puzzled, asking what he means. He laughs awkwardly and says that he also wants to join the inner sect. Without hesitation, she tells him he cannot. Her words leave him speechless, his mouth hanging open. She adds that he already has his own task, digging graves. Tang groans, feeling wronged, muttering that she's clearly setting him up. He complains that he's been digging for years without finding anything worthwhile, and even though his strength isn't on par with Yuan's, it's still good enough to qualify for the inner sect. Ye Yun laughs lightly, saying that it's his fate, as their father once said so. Yuan's expression shifts, startled, demanding to know what she means by calling him that. Before he gets an answer, she walks away, leaving Tang shouting after her, begging her to reconsider and show him some leniency. Yuan grabs him by the collar, pulling him back and muttering that something feels suspicious about the two of them. Tang takes a deep breath and finally admits that he'll come clean. With a reluctant pout, he confesses that Ye Yun is actually his sister, and to be exact, they're half-siblings who share the same father. Yuan's eyes widen in surprise before a faint smirk curves on his lips as he remarks that Tang is impressive for keeping such a secret for so long. Tang rubs the back of his head and sighs, saying there's nothing he can do since his sister refuses to acknowledge him, no matter what he tries. Suddenly, Yuan grabs his shoulders and turns to face him. Tang blinks in confusion, asking what's wrong. Yuan grins and says that from the moment he saw Ye Yun, he just knew they were destined to be friends. Tang grimaces, swatting his hand away and groaning for him to stop joking around, calling him Dad again out of habit. Yuan's expression darkens as he warns him not to call him that ever again. Tang raises an eyebrow and asks what he should call him then. Yuan pauses dramatically before replying that brother-in-law sounds better. Tang stares at him in disbelief, his face twisting in awkward horror at the thought, feeling utterly mortified by the teasing. After their usual banter, Yuan finally heads back home. Opening the door, he announces his return to his sister, who lies half asleep on the bed, barely reacting. He sighs softly, pulls a stool beside her, and sits down, telling her that he's got some exciting news to share. A faint smile touches his face as he explains that the outer sect's top genius, senior sister Yeyun, has agreed to speak with her master about letting him enter the outer sect and participate in this year's grand competition. Feeling determined, Yuan declares that he will give everything he has to enter the inner sect. Once there, he'll have the chance to meet the sect leader and beg him to save his sister. Rising from his chair, he stretches lightly and mutters that the next step is to temper himself. By integrating the decades of cultivation insight gained from the two corpse cultivator elders, he believes he can elevate his combat strength to a completely new level. 3 hours later, he sits cross-legged on the floor, his body surrounded by a soft orange glow. Letting out a long sigh, he notes that while his cultivation realm hasn't advanced, his combat power has clearly reached another tier. Even if he encounters a guardian-level corpse cultivator again, he might not be certain of victory, but at least he won't fall so easily. Suddenly, a loud voice calls his name, followed by the door crashing open with a heavy kick. Startled, Yuan quickly stands, recognizing the intruder. "Senior brother Victor," he says, frowning. "What's going on?" The man smirks, saying he came looking for him. Yuan raises a brow, asking if the fourth elder wants him to test another batch of medicine. Victor chuckles, replying that he already knows the answer, so why bother asking? Yuan's confusion deepens as he reminds him that the fourth elder had said the next test wouldn't be for another 3 days. Yuan points out that it is only the second day. Victor lunges forward, grabbing him by the collar and shouting where he learned such insolence. He glares sharply, telling him to stop questioning the fourth elder and just come along. Yuan, startled, stammers that he will go, but Victor shoves him and calls him an idiot. His gaze suddenly falls on the girl in the wheelchair, and he asks whether she is Yuan's sister, adding that she is very pretty. A leering smirk forms as he steps closer, saying he ought to touch her to see what she feels like. Yuan shouts his name from behind, and Victor turns, asking what the problem is. Yuan's expression hardens as he warns him not to touch his sister. The senior's temper flares, his whole body trembling with anger as he roars, demanding how a servant dares speak to an outer sect disciple that way. He turns back toward the woman, insisting that he will touch her no matter what. Yuan's glare deepens, and he warns again that if Victor dares, he will cut him down. The senior brother's face twists with rage as he screams that Yuan has no right to talk like that. He sneers, mocking that Yuan must be insane to think he truly meant harm, leaving both locked in a tense, furious standoff. Victor raises his hand toward the girl, intent on touching her, but a sudden sharp pain shoots through his finger. He looks down, shocked to see blood dripping from the fresh wound. Yuan grits his teeth and warns him to stop. The senior brother turns around in fury, shouting at him, demanding how he dares to attack him. Yuan tightens his grip on the sword and rushes forward, slicing off his arm in a single motion. Victor collapses to the ground, clutching his bleeding stump, his face twisting in confusion as he struggles to understand how Yuan's cultivation has become so strong. Yuan stands still, his sword pointed at him, his eyes cold as steel. He tells him there is only one answer: die. With another swift strike, he ends his life. The body falls motionless on the floor. Yuan disperses his sword and mutters that no one is allowed to touch his sister. She is the only family he has left in this world, and the man brought death upon himself. A glowing system window appears before him, asking him to select an extraction path, cultivation, technique, or memory. Yuan looks at the corpse, realizing that Victor is among the weakest outer sect disciples, and neither cultivation nor techniques would benefit him much. He selects the third option, memory. Instantly, a surge of golden blue energy rushes into his mind, and his eyes widen as fragments of Victor's memories unfold. Most are meaningless, but those concerning the fourth elder catch his attention. He recalls the elder's face, pale and coughing up blood, realizing that his condition is worsening and his life force is fading fast. Determined, Yuan heads toward the fourth elder's residence. Entering the dim chamber, he bows slightly and announces his arrival. The elder glances up, his expression cold, and asks where Victor is. Thinking quickly, Yuan replies that Victor had urgent matters to handle and left. The elder narrows his eyes but lets it pass, noting that Yuan has been testing his medicine for nearly 3 years. Yuan nods, clarifying that it has been 2 months short of that. The elder studies him closely, impressed that he shows no signs of decay or weakness, remarking that most would have broken down after half a year. Yuan lowers his head slightly, replying that it is all thanks to the elder's remarkable pill refining skills, concealing the quiet storm building behind his calm gaze. The fourth elder points toward the bubbling cauldron, asking Yuan if he knows what kind of pill he is refining this time. Yuan shakes his head, admitting that he doesn't. The elder smirks and says that this pill is unlike anything he has ever made before. He has used every rare herb he's gathered over the decades to refine it, calling it a gamble he absolutely cannot afford to lose. Yuan nods politely, wishing him success while quietly suspecting that the old man is plotting something sinister. Suddenly, the cauldron begins to tremble, steam bursting out as the lid flies open. The elder's eyes widen with excitement, shouting in triumph that it is complete, his laughter echoing wildly through the chamber. Yuan peers into the pot, confused. The pill inside is pitch black, giving off an ominous aura that makes his skin crawl. The elder steps closer, proudly holding the pill as he approaches Yuan, commenting on how strong and youthful his body is. Without warning, he presses the pill toward him, muttering that such vitality will serve him well. Yuan's expression darkens. His instincts scream that the old bastard is up to no good. The elder orders him to take it. Yuan hesitates, his eyes narrowing as he carefully picks up the pill, asking if he's supposed to test it too. The elder's gaze sharpens. He coldly asks if there's a problem and whether Yuan dares to refuse. Yuan forces a small laugh, saying he wouldn't dare, but adds that since this is the elder's life's work and there's only one pill in existence, shouldn't the creator taste it first? The elder waves him off, insisting that he take it and not worry. Yuan's hand trembles slightly as he stares at the sinister pill, knowing something is wrong. He secretly commands the system to extract its contents. The system asks him to choose between extracting the pill's essence or its toxins. Without hesitation, Yuan orders it to extract the toxins. The elder frowns, growing impatient, asking why he's just standing there. Yuan smiles faintly, pretending to be calm, and says he's about to eat it. He swallows the pill while the elder bursts out laughing, congratulating him for doing well. A moment later, the elder's expression twists into a smirk as he says that from this day forward, Yuan belongs to him. Yuan waves his hand weakly, grimacing and telling the old man to have some self-respect, realizing just how perverse his intentions are. Suddenly, his heartbeat quickens, his vision blurs, and pain stabs through his skull. The elder watches coldly, muttering that he will make fine use of his body. Yuan's head spins violently, his consciousness fading until his body collapses to the ground with a heavy thud.